Hey, friends. Welcome to another episode of Boldly Watch. We are going to make this episode go fast.
It's too boldly watch.
Yeah.
I actually have the way I pronounce it is apostrophe boldly watch. So the
Boldly
two
watch.
is just kind of,
It's implied.
it's implied. Yeah, exactly. Boldly
Who
watch.
are you?
You can hear me say two, but it's more of a grunt. So it's like boldly watch. Or no, I said two. Sorry.
Right.
Boldly watch.
Sorry,
Sorry, I kind of heave a little bit when I do that. Apparently.
Well, you always edit it in post, and you put it in each time. It's a difficult.
There are so many
editing.
days where I'm in the booth just going two.
It's called the glottal,
Right.
and it's in Cockney dialect.
It's called the glottal.
The glottal.
Yeah,
The
hungry.
glottal what?
Glottal H.
Glottal H.
It's a
Boldly
glottal
watch.
H. You have a glottal 2. Boldly watch.
Oh, boldly
Instead
watch.
of, yeah.
Boldly watch.
Going to the gutter.
Well,
You got
that's.
your mind in the gutter. That's a glottal.
I feel like you still say it though. You're still saying gutter.
Gutter. No.
Got it. I hear it. I
Uh-uh.
hear it. Or I should say, I don't hear it.
Uh-huh.
Anyway.
That's right. It's
No, there's no
it's
segue into that one.
Samaritan Snare.
Oh, lead us in, Xander. Lead us in.
When Wesley's got to take a big test, it's the return of Picard. He's grumpy and hates kids. And also, Geordi's in a pickle.
That is exactly what it says on Memory Alpha, word for word.
wow.
How good call on that.
I have the whole thing memorized.
That's right. It's the Samaritan Snare. Here's what the official thing says. Well, official, unofficial.
Right.
Picard must undergo a serious medical procedure while the crew deals with a ship, which lures the Enterprise away in hopes of stealing its technology.
What a pickle.
Picard really didn't want you to read that first part because he
Yeah.
doesn't
Oh
want
my
anyone to know
God.
about this medical procedure. It will make him look weak.
Super self-conscious about his achy, breaky heart.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and this is an interesting parallel because the most recent episode of Discovery dealt a little bit with this as well. Part of being a captain is the image that you project to the rest of the crew.
Sure.
That's really a big part of it. You know, how you react in situations, how the crew sees you, it depends on you. Whether it's terrified of you or respectful of you or in your corner.
It kind of makes me wonder about singular leadership in the future anyway. Like, is the idea of a captain and one person being in charge gonna continue in human history for a whole long time? Like, I feel like more and more there are like governing bodies or groups of people that are in charge of things. Like even on like the International Space Station or a lot of space missions, there tends to be like someone quote unquote in charge, but everybody's kind of in charge. They are a group dynamic. So I was
Decision by
wondering about.
committee.
Yeah. And so it's like, this is the one thing about Star Trek that's still a little, well, not the one thing. This is one of the many things that's still a little old fashioned of like this bravado of being the leader and what the leadership role means amongst the crew. And I still like that we have it, but like it's a little bit hard to reconcile, right?
Well, I think that you have just touched on the theme of Star Trek. Because constantly it's just proving, whether it's Kirk or Picard or Janeway or whatever, they always have a committee of people. They always have the discussions around the conference table, but it all comes down to who's going to tell us go, who's going to say engage, who's going to say make it so. And those are the people that take the risks, and they also are the ones who are held accountable for the things that go wrong. Because you can't blame the committee, essentially. You have to have somebody that can say, I need to make the tough calls in these tough situations and be held accountable for my actions. And that is decided by committee as well, who becomes a captain.
Right. There's an interesting point there because what is the ultimate way to rule or what is the ultimate democracy? Because you do need a decision to be made. And if it's just unanimous is the only way to move forward, then nothing happens.
You end up like
As
the
with some,
Vulcans.
corporate board run corporations. I know Japan has a big culture of decision by committee. And is it better? Like hierarchical structure is so problematic, but at some point you do need someone to make a decision.
Well, at the end of the day, you do have the prime minister. So, while there is a focus on decisions being made by committee, ultimately it can come down to someone making a decision.
This feels like the proper time to tell you both that I have found one impression I can actually do.
I'm ready to hear it.
Shinzo Abe.
That was a perfect Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
Thank you. That's it. Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. Shinzo Abe, you got it.
I don't even think he's the Prime Minister anymore.
So let's begin this episode in chronological order. Then we'll get various Picard quotes in here provided by Becca. So Wesley is prepping for a big exam. It sounds like is he retaking the Starfleet Academy exam or brushing up on his studies? That was kind of unclear to me.
It seems like this is the redo of what we had seen before. He talks about the competitiveness of the other candidates and things like that. So I think the assumption is that he just needs to get through this to be actually in for college credit.
Yeah, so he's a little nervous about that, but seems like he knows his shit. Like,
did we even find out if he passed by the end of the episode? Because they skim over that.
Well, they mention it, which is again why I asked this question. Because Becca, what they say in the end is that they have determined that he is still allowed to be on board the Enterprise and serve in the capacity.
So he wasn't picked to be the one person that gets into the Academy, because last time he took the test, it was to get into Academy study, and he didn't get it.
Yeah.
And there was so much emphasis put on that procedure and what he could and couldn't get, and then it was completely dropped for this episode. And I imagine that was because of time. It's like we put Wesley in the shuttlecraft to give Picard the backstory stuff that he could tell somebody. We didn't put Wesley in the shuttlecraft because we want to go on his story. It was really about Picard. So he was more of a plot device in this, unfortunately. But I hear that, Becca. I was wondering that too. I was like, so what happened? But no, he just...
we don't want him to leave the ship, so I guess we want him to fail the test.
I think he got a pass-fail situation. So he passed but didn't get an A, which only one person can get in when 4 people are doing the antimatter conversion test.
Right.
1 to 1.
Is that what it is? Is it 1? Hold on, let me write this down.
Yeah.
1 colon
this whole time.
1.
Now, colon has the 2 periods, or is that the comma one?
It's the vertical 2 periods.
Vertical. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you're thinking semi.
Yeah, I have done ellipses. 1 ellipsis and then wrote out 1.
Sure.
Okay.
That ratio is going to be a little off. But just
so, while Wesley's getting ready for the test prep, Picard's getting ready for something he doesn't want to confront, which Pulaski lays out for him. Is like, you got to get this procedure done. And she doesn't say what it is, I don't think, in that.
No. She does not. I thought, because it's related to image, Botox question mark?
It really, like, I have no problem with any looks or anything, especially because Picard is such a dashing individual. But like, I was like, is this a hair transplant reference of some sort? He's like, you got to do it. He's like, I don't want to. But no, I also knew what it eventually was, and I was glad they kind of left a little bit of mystery for us. So, Becca, what did you thought? Did you actually? I mean, I know you didn't think it was actually Botox, but like, did you have any? Yeah, cosmetic. Yeah,
I knew it was a. It doesn't really matter what the procedure is.
Yeah.
It's more about his bravado, about not wanting people to know.
Yeah. He has weakness.
Or, treatment for erectile dysfunction or something. Why is he so embarrassed?
Yeah.
In the 24th century, everybody has ED. It's fine.
That's not fine. They need to see what kind of radiation is coming in.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Stay away from the antimatter. I knew it had bad side effects. Like turning into the bozos behind you, Jake.
Well, speaking of bozos, as Picard and Wesley realize they're going to have to take a road trip together, we get a distress call from
distressed ship.
Who are these people?
They're the Packleds. It's called the Mondor.
Right.
And they're broken down and they need a little bit of help. But we were so eager to do this survey of the pulsar. Oh, darn it.
I thought it was going to be, it was a big red herring. I thought it was going to be like a beautiful star blow up thing.
Yeah, we were all ready to do some surveying, but unfortunately we got to go help these
idiots.
And also get Picard off to Starbase 515. So...
you know what I did think? It crossed my mind, since he's not going to let Pulaski do it, and he's very firm on that, he might be a never nude.
He is wearing jean shorts underneath his uniform at all times.
That's what I thought. That's what I
am. pull is. It's
Yeah.
just the jean shorts underneath.
Exactly. He's got a full jean uniform under there.
Wait, why did you think this was his issue? Because Pulaski didn't mention it?
He was shy.
It's a reference to Arrested
No,
Development.
I get what I'm just saying. Why did you think he had that? Because she wouldn't say. Therefore, you assumed Never Nude was your first guess.
Why does he not want Pulaski specifically to do his surgery?
Got it. Yeah.
We find out later it's because hot goss, but
Yeah.
really, it would have been subtler had you just slipped into the med bay, asked everybody except Pulaski to not be present,
Yeah, there's
and
like
to go on a 12-hour round trip.
that everybody's
with a
going to
little
know about.
boy.
Everybody knows the captain's not on board.
I mean, can I just say, throughout the whole thing, I have a big old note. Pulaski's the best. We can all agree.
Why?
Just
I don't know.
because
Do we want to get into this right now?
she's bending over backwards for some vanity thing that the captain has when she is the person that is most capable of doing this surgery, directly available to him on
She didn't
his
mention
vessel.
that, did she?
And she did not.
No.
Because she didn't want to drop that humble brag. But she said, I can do it. And he's like, no, not you.
I literally wrote the book on this too.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little OP because if she, given all we know about Pulaski and how she was dissing him about the ego thing, she really should have put her foot down. Also because Picard was nervous about the less than 3% chance of the surgery going wrong. Spoilers, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
And if
You
he
mean
was
they won't
worried
get home
about
in time for dinner?
Yeah.
Those
Why wouldn't you
surgeons.
have the very best surgeon perform your surgery when she literally is already working for you?
Yep.
Wait, you don't like that she made that decision? Or like you wanted her to put her foot down to force him to be there?
I
She
think
should have
there's
been
some
stricter.
holes in logic that of why he didn't have Pulaski do the surgery.
Okay. I think TV wise, it makes sense to me of like, he's trying to, it's an ego trip for him. So he's got to go figure that
Bringing
out.
up TV wise, Jake.
This is
And
real.
I think, this is real life to me. Xander and I take this really seriously.
Sometimes
And
I doubt your commitment to Star Trek.
do you pledge yourself to the Federation right here, right now?
Yeah.
Unquestionably.
Thank you.
But here's the thing. Is
I
like,
hope-
as I always want to live in the reality of Star Trek and figure out the rationale for it too. But we always have to blend this in the world of television, which is what we're watching. We're still watching a television show, right? So there's rational choices that we have to bridge, I guess. I know you don't understand, Becca. One day it will become clear.
Okay, also, I want to tell you that you failed the test. That was actually an Academy question, and you were not supposed to pledge unquestioningly
Ooh.
because
You got
it
me.
is a good member of Starfleet that always questions.
That's why I am still an acting ensign. I have failed that test like 55 times. And I would have got the antimatter conversion thing right, but that's a new problem for me now.
So I tell you something, Becca, if you were now promoted to acting captain of a vessel, and your captain is off on a mysterious journey with the chosen child, and you come across this this
The
Mayday,
chosen child.
well, would you react in a similar way that Riker did, or what would you do in this scenario?
Just yell at them and send
Listen
your
to
best
Deanna
officer
Troi.
out despite your security officer's warnings. And then when your counselor comes on board and says, no, these are vicious people, they are malicious, get him back.
Okay,
I
listen
would
to
say,
her.
no. I love away missions and I'm not going to take this majority. I am just going to yell at them eventually, which is what he does instead of calmly taking a note from Picard's book and responding in a diplomatic way. He just starts yelling through the view screen.
Yep.
And that's the Riker way.
Yeah, the Riker playbook was total failure today. Like this episode, he did everything wrong. Even I noticed one body choice that he made was like when during a very tense situation where they're still waiting to find out if Geordi's okay. Like they cut back to the Enterprise, and Riker's just got his legs crossed in the captain's chair, just leaning back,
chill.
waiting for news. It's like you caused this problem. Worf warned you. Troy warned you. Geordi said I'll do it, and look where he's at now.
Listen, Jake.
Okay, well, Jake, look in your playbook and tell me the two options you have in any situation.
So seduce them or go over yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he chose be horny, and you
Yeah.
got to do that. It's all about image when you're the acting captain. It's a vibe you got to give off. Like, yeah, panicking inside, horny on Maine outside.
There you go. Living that Riker life.
It was like, well, this is another TV / like Star Trek convolutedness of like they were really demeaning to those guys when they first met them. They were very rude to them of like, what a rubber band break or like
that was a Geordi diss, and I wrote it down because it was such a zinger and also seemed a little harsh.
It was.
Well, let's describe them for people who maybe forgot. These are white men. Little overweight or very overweight.
And by white, we're talking like near Data white.
Right.
Data white. Yeah. Well, okay. And the actors too. With like sad, droopy clown makeup and really limited linguistic capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Repeating the same things over and over.
We need things to make us go.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And eyebrows that make them look very clown-like. I wouldn't have described it as clown-like until you said that. Now I totally see it.
Like the tragic clown.
And like the exaggerated features, like they cast actors that all kind of look alike that have a receding hairline and are a little more jowly as well. And they kind of all already did have like a similar look to them before they put the makeup on them. So I thought that was a great choice, actually. But yeah, they're kind of, how do you summarize them? It's hard to,
dumb.
Right?
Just dumb.
Which is not a fair
dumb
way to summarize a species.
Right.
But that is kind of all we've kind of given is they're kind of dim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we start to learn is that they advanced before they evolved because they started stealing technology to get where they got. And that's why. So the huge issue of this episode, another huge mistake Riker makes is he says when Worf urges caution, he says it is our duty to give them aid. And it's absolutely not. It is your duty to observe them and to not interfere. It's the prime directive.
Well, are they pre-warp?
That's the difference.
Yes.
Well, the difference is they're spacefaring. If they have technology that we can repair, that we're not giving them better technology, that's the difference that they have to sort of sift through.
I think they said that their vessel is light speed capable when they met, but not warp speed capable, was my understanding.
I think spacefaring is because if they're a planet-based species that is unaware of other life in the galaxy, that is one barrier to cross. But they're spacefaring, they're aware of other life, and we are able to repair their systems. I think this would be an okay and not a breach of the Prime Directive, but the protocol was iffy, especially just dealing with the Borg of like, please don't send over away teams to ships without any research.
Worf also made such a great point. He's like, do we have to send the chief engineer?
Yeah.
We have a whole cast of people, including Gomez, who made another appearance, by the way. Yeah. Like, they also need a lot of training. He's got stuff to do. Let's send over someone less important. Jory's like, or Riker's like, well, no.
Yeah. What?
Making that decision.
Let's hold for a second, and can we get Oshi figured out?
Oh no, we just hear horrible noises.
Oshi, we are recording a podcast.
Someone had to say it.
Well, but when I say get figured out, I didn't mean bring him into the recording studio, but I think okay. But she just yelled at him, and that's gonna work.
I think that was the answer.
I think he took the note.
Yeah, good.
Okay, if that works, I'm gonna be so impressed. That'll be great. Yeah, well, they send Geordi over, and I mean, Geordi is a great guy, and he is very helpful. But like, this condescension still kind of exists throughout the beginning, and so I think this is what I was saying earlier. Is like this is the TV line of like we're trying to set them up as not threatening, so much so that when they become a threat, it's a real twist.
It's the theme again of the Federation being complacent and overlooking the small things because they think they're impervious to everything.
Yeah.
You know that something bad is going to happen to Geordi over there because we're warned against it. But I did think that they did a pretty good job. You know that they'll become a threat, but you don't know that they're going to intentionally become a threat. You think maybe the ship will malfunction or something.
Or they'll bumble into it.
Yeah. So I thought that was well done.
Also, I wanted to comment that Troy's makeup is stellar in this episode. Like, someone discovered highlighter and under her eyes. It's just so good. It's a very good.
They've improved.
Great observation.
They've improved makeup across the board on this season. Like the first season, she was definitely way too pale for a lot of those shots, and like Data also had some weird color issues, but like they've definitely dialed it in, and the lighting too, I assume. But
and not caking it on as much, which is definitely an early issue.
And I think that's watching it in HD, which
that's what I think is something we mentioned more. Like actually, real quick in the last episode with the Borg, I also noticed like a lot of the textures of the wall feel like just painted steel / plastic. Yeah, and like you can kind of see that more than you could now.
Right.
Hey, don't look at that. Don't look behind the curtain. You know what is interesting is that I was like, did Geordi bring a GoPro with him? Because we have very clear shots of their whole bridge. But it turns out you can just turn their view screen on in reverse and hack it until they put their shields up, I guess.
Yep. Sure. Yeah, why not? I mean, they have super inferior technology. I mean, I'm sure we can just hack into someone's signal. It's not insane, all right?
Fair enough. Can you make our ship go?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, they are a cool. As an alien species, I was trying to say is like we can only summarize them as dim, right? But like they are a byproduct of what would happen in a galaxy that has a lot of different levels of technology crisscrossing the universe all the time, right? Is there would be a species that, as you accurately said, Becca, advanced before they evolved, and so this is kind of the outcome of that. And so I'm glad we kind of explored this potential. It's kind of a weird way to do it, but whatever.
It seems like, humans also advanced before their potential because they got into space and then it was like, and here's all this other stuff thrown at you, warp speed, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But these specific people, someone must have come to their planet and given them a spaceship for them to go inside and start pushing buttons and get it in space and start stealing stuff.
And you can tell that it might have been Klingon, Romulan, because they have all these different parts that are taken from other technologies.
Boy, I would love to have seen how pissed the Klingons would have been when they pulled this trick on them. Yeah. Like, how did they do this with everybody else, much less do this with the Enterprise?
Yeah, well, that wouldn't have worked because the Klingons would have just blown them up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
well, they got it somehow.
The Klingon engineer that was beamed over there would have been like, "Yes, kill us!
Yeah. In battle!"
Go ahead.
That's when Troy comes in and tells us, "Hey, you're an idiot. You need to call me before you just send somebody over to help.
Yeah,
because these guys are up to no good. They're trying to hoodwink you, as it were."
I imagine she was sitting in her quarters and she got the feeling that like someone was being treacherous on the other ship. She's like, okay, well, they're not going to just send somebody over there. I don't need to like run to the bridge. Wait, somebody's missing. Wait, they're growing confident over there. God damn it, Riker. And it just gets up.
And I liked the way that she phrased it, that she was like, our chief engineer, Geordi, is over there. Because she can't jump the hierarchy and say, why would you do this?
Yeah.
I really wanted Worf to be like, yep.
He totally did with his face. His grimace went from regular grimace to like slightly more I told you so grimace, and I love that shot.
I mean, that's one of the times where I'm like, Worf told you. And Worf is constantly giving advice that we always ignore, and generally he's actually kind of right.
Yeah,
like,
always.
He's overly cautious a lot as the security officer. He's always like, let's D up, right? And that is his job. And so sometimes it's not warranted, but like every time it is, we should always be turning back to Worf and be like, hey, but I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we should take you more seriously.
My bad.
No,
what was never gets an apology. Episode where him and Pulaski were at odds about how hardline they should be about the Prime Directive, and Worf was like, "It's a hard and fast rule. You can't violate it." And Pulaski was like, "Everything has nuance." Blah blah blah. I'm Pulaski. Pen pals.
Oh, that's the impersonation you do. I hear it now. That was flawless, Pulaski.
Jake, when you understand the nuances of impersonation, you will understand, too, that my Margaret Thatcher is impeccable, even though she was a super evil woman that did nothing for women or really anyone but herself.
So that's a plug for The Crown.
Right. Yeah, it's a great show. I started at season 4. I ended at season 4. I love it.
Well, we'll start that podcast next week.
Cool. See you there.
To boldly crown.
So meanwhile, though,
it's also that's
a birthing show. Yeah. Of Borg babies.
To boldly crown. Meanwhile, there is a long road trip happening with
A
Wesley
great acting
and Picard.
monologue.
A great acting monologue? Oh, you mean Picard's story?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of names and places to remember in that monologue. Hey, I know I'm poking a lot of plot holes today, but why didn't they just drop them off at the starbase? Why'd they make Picard and Wesley get into a tiny little star cruiser that any asteroid could have blown up and travel 6 hours?
Because they were going the wrong way.
They were going, they were heading
With
towards
warp,
this.
2 minutes.
I agree with you, Becca. Flat out, you're right. I thought the exact same thing. My rationale for it, which I think they mentioned, is they're heading towards this solar thing they were going to go study.
Right.
And then after they left, then they got the call to go to the other place to go help that trip.
Originally, it was just Wesley going. So he was supposed to be by himself, probably piloting this thing to go take an academy test. And then all of a sudden, Picard is like, oh, I'm going too. And that you can visibly see everyone being like, what? Why?
I also like that it's like a 6-hour ride, and like Picard takes 3 very thick classic novels with him when he packs his bag.
Speed reader.
Like, okay, Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing? You're not going to read all that.
And this is a
have
lesson
the
in
switch
acting
charged.
right here. A book, when read on screen, may never be closed with 2 hands. It must always be snapped shut with 1 hand.
And never on a line.
Yeah, never on a line.
Reading a hardcover book, anytime I close it, I want to snap it shut. It's the most satisfying feeling ever.
Here's the thing. I said it earlier, but there are a bunch of cues that you would give to an actor who had to have a bunch of monologues. You give some food that they can play with, or some dishes or something.
Oh, fuck.
A sandwich that it was replicated with no crusts, I notice.
Yeah, it's very like English tea, like sandwiches.
We've talked about my aversion to food in acting scenes. We talked about this recently, didn't we?
Yeah.
Did you guys not see the same problem in this scene? Like, they were chewing so much while they were trying to talk. It was so bothersome to me.
I love sandwiches, so I did not have this problem. I'm always a fan of eating all the time, especially sandwiches.
Made sandwiches and coffee. It made me crave it from that scene.
I'm so impressionable. Like, when I see someone eat a sandwich, I want a sandwich, especially in film and television.
Yep.
This is because we're empathetic, Xander, but especially a cigarette, a beer, a cocktail, hard drugs. I'm always like, oh, well, now I want that.
Right.
Just kidding, Mom. Just kidding. I had to escalate the joke.
That's one way to describe yourself, as wanting to eat / consume more, depending on what you see.
It's empathetic.
I do really want. Yeah.
Well, I was telling Xander before we started recording, it was the most basic bitch little sandwich too. It was a little ham and cheese on white bread. I was like, this isn't an English thing.
Did you just call Picard a basic bitch?
Well, I'm calling his sandwich choice basic because like he's supposed to be drinking Earl Grey tea, and it's like this is an American thing to have coffee and a really crappy sandwich, like a 1980s
where's his
mom
Earl
sandwich.
Grey?
Yeah.
Hot.
Which coffee's a smarter choice on a road trip, but like the sandwiches, I'm like, this is one of the most cultured men on the ship, and he's giving us ham and cheese in triangle slices.
I think it's like an English high tea sort of like finger like sandwiches.
Where are them
There was
crumpets?
mayonnaise and eggs in there.
This could also be Picard being like, I know what kids like, sandwiches.
He just offers him a lollipop because he doesn't know better.
Here, child. They had this talk. Wesley says, everybody knows you don't like kids, but Wesley's an adult at this point. He's like 17.
He considers himself a kid, though, like, or at least the writers
like a kid.
Yeah, like if you're not wearing a full-on uniform or like 18, I guess you are still a KID. Like that's the way it goes.
Even though he's so in control with women.
I know.
In control.
I got no problem with that.
Said.
Yeah,
which I love that Picard didn't call him out on that. He's like, yeah, okay.
Okay, remember that whole Romeo
boy.
Juliet situation where you met the girl who's supposed to become a princess of the light and the dark sides of her moon or whatever?
Yeah.
You were not very smooth.
He was a monster underneath all that.
But that's such like a teenage nerdy boy thing too, of like, well, that will never be a problem for me, trust me.
Because you know what happened is like he had one girl who had a crush on him, and like he totally handled it really well, but that framed his entire
I nailed it.
Yeah.
Can someone please reenact all of Picard's speech about why he has a heart condition?
Well, we'll get to see it later on. There may be some flashbacks.
There's a reenactment of it in some way, isn't there, in a future episode? I vaguely remember this. So Picard tells this story about, I won't reenact it because I
Please
can't.
I asked nicely.
Well, you're the impressionist. Let's hear it from you.
Ooh.
On Far Space Starbase Earhart.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
No, well, me and some hooligans, we were in the academy, and we went to Bonesdale Recreation Facility to hobnob with the galactic riffraff that wanted a confrontation. Most others knew not to get into said confrontation, but I was brazen and bold, and I started a fight with 3 Nassicarians?
Nausicans.
Necessarians are great.
Yeah.
My narcissism and their narcissians, whatever, confronted. And I had them bested, too. Would you like another sandwich?
I'm a child. I love sandwiches, Papa. Please give me another.
Indeed, you womansmith. Wait, ladies man.
I'm the chosen
Womansmith. Order of women's hearts.
Anyway, I had the 3 of them bested until one of them impaled me in the back with a shard of metal. And as I saw the serrated metal sticking out of my chest, I laughed out loud. It didn't even hurt. I did indeed gain that kink that day, and ever since, I've been very closeted about my heart kink.
Mm-hmm. That's what it takes now.
Hey, great job. That was like 90% word for word, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think this is why he hates children, is because he was such an arrogant asshole as a kid. So now we know he thinks all kids are as arrogant of assholes as he once was.
Boy,
and they should all be impaled in the heart to learn their lesson.
Yeah.
Well, what a brutal backstory. Like, that's a very sudden thing. It's like, oh, I was stabbed through the chest.
And I would be dead in another time period.
And it wasn't even that it was a painful experience. It was a shocking experience. And I laughed when it happened. It was kind of like maddening a little bit. That's crazy.
I relate. One time I stepped on a nail and it went in my heel. And your body, when there's adrenaline rushing through, you honestly don't even feel pain. You just feel a rush. Now, it didn't hit my bone, which I was told I would have felt pain had it done that. It just... they just yanked it out and it was cool. Went to Comic-Con.
It's crazy how both Xander and I, like, our shoulders are like freaking out because
I did that too.
I know.
I'll find the picture. Don't worry.
The nuance of that. No, that's good. Oh, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, and this, I think this incident is the biggest distinction between Kirk and Picard as captains, because Kirk is a captain that will rush in, has never really been burned. He's gotten into trouble and he's gotten a little telling off, but he's never really been, he doesn't start off as like damaged in some way. And Picard comes at this with an older perspective and from someone who is early on in his life experienced how short life could be, and why his captaincy is so different.
Captaincy. Good word.
Yeah, it's also like Kirk's kind of the guy who will I guess ignore the rules, whereas Picard will try to understand and adapt to them. I don't know if I'm going to commit to that as my permanent analysis of those two, but like it definitely feels that way with the Kobayashi Maru of like Kirk's like, this isn't how I want to play. Right. Whereas Picard's like, I've played this way before and lost and I've learned from it. And so I'm going to apply what I've learned.
The biggest thing, you can commit no wrong moves and still fail.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't worry. I found it. Okay. Trigger warning.
Oh, God. Oh, that's not so bad. Yeah, that went in deep.
Tell me about it. Roofing nail.
Oh,
why did you do that?
Yeah.
Into it? Yeah, trying out new kinks. Turns out impalation, not my thing. I'll never be a captain.
It's good to know, though. Just off the list.
I was playing fetch with the dog in the backyard. We had just gotten our roof redone, and there were roofing nails. Typically, the roofers have this big magnet they walk around with and pick up the nails that have fallen, and they did not find this one.
Well, you did.
I did. Anyway.
You are the magnet.
Thanks.
So, really quick before we move on from the shuttlecraft trip, you guys understand fully what I'm saying with the sandwiches, right? Like, there's so much chewing in this scene. Like,
There is.
Would you rather do this monologue without a sandwich? Yes, right?
I don't know.
Nope,
It
strongly
did add a
disagree. I love a
dimension to
sandwich.
it.
I like,
I don't mind it as much.
acting's always better with a prop.
That's what I think.
Not in your mouth, not when you're swallowing. Like,
But here's the thing.
Let me tell you about my
Patrick
favorite
Stewart-
movies.
they have to pause their rhythm constantly to chew/swallow. Both
But
of them.
that's part of the rhythm when Patrick Stewart's doing it. I think Will tries to, but you can see this poetry of interrupting a thought with chewing and having to consider your words before saying them out. I don't know. There's something relatable about it.
I agree with the prop thing. I 100% agree with the prop thing. It's nice to have something to hold/indicate whatever. But when it's impeding the one thing you use to speak with, because we humans are built with our airway and our mouth and our consumption portal in the same spot, right? We're just limited in that way. And I think food is just always the wrong choice because it's always going to slow things down and create that pause as opposed to you earning that pause. So like your example, Xander, I think is like if that contemplative nature was justified within them actually thinking about it as opposed to thinking about it while chewing.
Yeah.
That feels heavy.
Idea for an alien species: 2 mouths, 1 for chewing, 1 for talking.
Best. I mean, look at dolphins that we got them here. Like it's like some
what?
Well, I mean, not for talking, but for breathing, right? They breathe out of their blowholes, right? They eat in their mouths. It's a much better way. They don't. I mean, they choke up there, but they don't choke right in here.
No
I
comment.
got that gone.
Boom! Speaking of bombs of wisdom, Jake, how about you just open your mind to the past, art, history, philosophy, and then all this may mean something. That's line. That's line in the show.
It was a good line. It was genuinely moving.
Because Wesley never read the book that Picard gave him.
Yeah.
Don't know when that happened, but wow. Your captain gives you a book, you read it. Was it James Blake?
It's nice. It's nice to have a character that doesn't just live in the future and is only of the future, right? He's like, there's plenty of lessons we can learn from the past. And Picard specifically learned stuff from our past, the viewer's past. Like they actually did reference, he's like, this would have been like a 22nd century flight, am I right? But like they rarely do this stuff in between now and then. They do stuff in our history. Like he references Dickens and Holmes and other stuff, much older literature as well. And that's nice to have. It's nice to
doesn't give us much to look forward to in the next several hundred years.
It's a dead literature era for the next couple hundred years, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I would say that Patrick Stewart as a person also does that by the way that I have seen him tell Shakespeare changed my life.
Oh, I think I've mentioned this before, but like he does a play. I think he used to do it every year. I doubt he does it anymore, where he does a one-man Christmas carol by himself and he's memorized the entire play.
Sure.
And he'll do all the characters. It's crazy.
Well, during quarantine, he did a sonnet reading a day. Pretty cool.
Yeah, he's old school. He's wonderfully old school.
Yeah. Well, and also I feel like this relationship could have sparked a lot of conversations between parents and kids who might have been watching the show and have similar mindsets. There's always that older versus the younger attitude of like, well, I'm a very bright young person, so I know better than you do. I don't need to look in the past. And then the older person saying, hold on, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I was there too. Here's what I can offer you for as far as wisdom.
Well,
speaking of offering wisdom,
that's the segue I was gonna do. Back to Geordi and the Dum Dums, right?
Geordi and the Dum Dums.
New album out this fall. So Geordi fixes their issue, and they're like, "Well, we don't really want you to leave, so you're not going to." And grab his weapon or have a weapon on him. I can't remember.
Oh no! Now the power's out. He has to do a second. Whole power on the ship malfunction, and then he grabs his phaser. The lead dum-dum grabs Geordi's favorite phaser off his belt and shoots Geordi with his favorite phaser.
Yeah.
Pheasant
Geordi has
plucker.
a very slow reaction to it too. He's like, what? Oh no.
I was upset that when Deanna Troi came into the bridge and said, this is crazy, they're up to something. And they call him, they're like, Geordi, you cool? And he says, yeah, it's all good here. why didn't they just send Worf over to just stand guard, hold the phaser, hand on phaser,
and
be security?
If it was Picard ignoring Troy, but the double betrayal of Riker ignoring Troy when she's saying, there's something wrong, listen to me. And he's like, nah. And it's like, you know better than that. You know Troy.
Yeah.
Well, they were on guard and they were exchanging looks, but they were like, well, what can we do? Send him back up. Send him someone to be literally watching his back as he's inside of a cupboard adjusting wires.
But they got like shields up at some point, right? And so like they couldn't transport people back. Like they couldn't rescue Geordi at some point.
But they hadn't shown their hand at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when they did, boy, did they phaser the crap out of Geordi again. Like that
so
shot,
rude.
like he flew back against the bulkhead and they're just like, what are you going to do now? It's like, holy God.
Now,
and like,
when he said, we have a copier machine, a replicator, and then the dum-dum hands Geordi the phaser he'd just stolen and says, copy it. But then, so you handed Geordi the phaser, why didn't he just shoot everybody?
Dum-dum.
Well, Geordi was the dum-dum in that situation because he said, he was like, use our replicator that we have and don't know how to use to replicate this phaser I stole from you. Here's your phaser back.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, don't know.
Cut away.
Yeah.
Well, Geordi like eventually starts to try and like reason with them, which fails, and so the crew of the Enterprise needs to create a deception.
They like Riker's 8. It was like a ruse.
I know, right? What a heavy-handed ruse it ended up being too. Yeah. But now we are dealing with like a ship full of dum-dums, but like they were very much like, at weapons control, Geordi, I will miss seeing you there.
When we blow you up, we're gonna kill you. We don't care.
Like I still feel if I was Geordi, I wouldn't quite understand what they were getting at. I would get there trying to tell me something, but I'd be like, what do they want me to do?
Yeah.
Gonna leave me here?
Right.
Weapons. What?
24.
Like as clear as they were that they were being like deceptive, they weren't clear as to what they were telling him to do, in my opinion at least. But Geordi
I still don't know what the 24 was. And then later they just counted down from 24.
That was, they were giving him the time to arm and disarm things. That's how
it was a window of time for him to set up on the other side when to disable their photon torpedoes, right?
Because normally it wouldn't be that long. It would be like an instant fire and it fires. But they gave him, and they told him how long he would have in between.
We will fire in 24 seconds and count down loudly from 24 on your view screen, dum-dums, before we shoot you.
I mean, I feel like if they don't figure this out, Geordi could just be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go run to the ship and get one of my wrenches to fix this. I'll be right back. And then beams off and they're like, wait a second.
Well, that is kind of how it ended. So what happened was they just like shot a red mist that was a visual effect that our girl Sonia put out, and then they were like, oh, we did that to disrupt your weapon system that Geordi just gave you. And then the dum-dums are like, oh, we're too dumb. Shields down. But Geordi didn't control the shields at that point. The shields were still up. They were so disheartened that they decided to let Geordi go.
That is critting on an intimidation check.
Yeah. Fair enough. If you roll in that 20, you do get to beam off the ship. That's true.
I just want to read like Riker's mission log back to Picard of like what he was doing while they were gone.
So you got heart surgery, right? Oh, let's talk about that.
No, I want to go back to what you did when not listening to any of your senior staff and you walked on another ship full of dum-dums.
Troy also made the keen observation, Geordi is frightened. And Riker says, we all are. I really wanted her to be like, actually, sir, no, you are not. I'm sensing a feeling of arrogance because you've started your plan because you think you're going to trick them. And you actually give zero fucks about Geordi is what I'm sensing.
And a hint of horniness?
And horniness. I taste the horniness.
The taste. The fact that you clucked your tongue. It's not in the air. Residue.
We don't know how she perceives these things. It might be a taste for her.
Betazoid magic.
Oh my god! If that's how her empathy works is through taste, she's like, wow.
They're up to something awful.
The dum-dums are all horny. That's not what I want to smell.
Yeah.
Okay, so back on Starbase 515, we have Wesley make sure that Picard gets to his surgery.
Which is a cute
Wesley's
little...
I liked that part too.
This
it's like
is very much like a parent making a kid do a thing.
And I also like the comment that Wesley gives to Picard in the shuttlecraft, which is like, it's too bad. You would have made a good father. And that kind of comes out of nowhere because it doesn't come out of nowhere because Wesley obviously looks up to him, but Picard doesn't quite address it too much. He's like, thank you, and like runs away from that comment, which I love.
Really, the comment was, "You would have made a great surrogate father to me, who grew up without a father. Will you be my father, please?"
Yeah, because then he says a line that becomes like a catchphrase for him, but not in the full phrasing of something along the lines of "wishing something doesn't make it so." And then
I wish that there was an ellipsis, and he was like, "Wishing something does not make it so."
Yeah.
Catchphrase. Is that how he means it all the time? Who knows? Hey, but then there's a touching moment where Wesley says on the planet, on the starbase, I really enjoyed our time together. And Picard's all, I did too. You guys have a whole round trip back as far as you know.
Right? But
don't get wishy here.
Well, it could be the last time that he's seeing Picard. He is going in for heart surgery, and he's the only one that knows that.
But it's a routine procedure.
Mm-hmm. We should be in time for dinner.
There's also an assumption the Enterprise might pick him up too. Who knows?
We got to describe the surgery theater where everyone wears red gowns and caps, including the patient. So I guess if it's spurting blood everywhere, it still goes with your outfit.
Well, this is just for human patients. When they have Vulcans, it's all blue.
That makes sense. A neural caliper is a little stickum that goes on your forehead and is the new anesthesia.
Yeah. There was a whole buttload of medical technobabble that poor actor day player had to memorize.
Yeah.
I wrote, where will we ever find an actor that not only looks good in red, but can combine medical babble with technobabble, which he surely did.
It was a lot. I normally like to parse out technobabble. That one I'm like, I don't want to.
That one you had to call the biomolecular physiologist?
Yep. I know just who to call.
I will say in medical scenes on TV at this time too, it did tend to get very jargon heavy, and that's the way they make it feel like everybody's a specialist and a professional. So like they very much emulated that the same way. To the credit of the red surgery gowns, this actually reminded me of another 80s surgery thing, which is a very disturbing David Cronenberg film. Have you guys ever seen Dead Ringers?
Mm-mm.
It's a horror film, psychological horror, which I can't recommend to everybody, although I enjoyed it, but it's a trip. But Jeremy Irons plays...
Cronenberg is not for everyone.
No, it's not. But Cronenberg, Jeremy Irons plays identical twins that are, I believe, gynecologists. But in the surgery scenes that they have, they're wearing the exact same red things that you see here. I mean, like picture for picture. In fact, I'll put a link to a
studio
surgery picture here on.
I just found him in the closet.
Description. Yeah. I'll put it here in our private chat so you guys
can see. Might not be wrong.
That's what I think. I think actually they were thinking about changing to red because blue was surgery garb for a lot of medical professions, probably still is now, but like red made more sense. I don't know, but like it's not like you're going to reuse surgical garb. So like I don't think stains were an issue. But you'll see that this is Dead Ringers was made in 88, and man, these surgeons look exactly dressed the same way as they did in the episode.
Also, at the end, Becca, did you expect it to be Pulaski? Because it would have been a great time to bring back Gates.
That would have been epic.
Right? Especially if Wesley had been there on the starbase too. Like, it would have
been amazing.
Yeah.
I was screaming, we know Pulaski's the only one that can do it. Bring her in here already.
Yeah.
Go save him. And then they do this slow push in and move around. And I think they chose these outfits covering the back of the head specifically so you wouldn't recognize Pulaski's hair for their little trick of the camera at the end.
Sounds right.
What are you doing here? If you're here,
what the hell are you doing here?
Everyone knows my secret.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you should just stay on the ship. You'll never get those 6 hours back. But at least you and Wesley had the sandwiches.
At least they'll always have the sandwiches.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you.
We get Geordi back. We get Picard in okay shape, and Wesley technically passes his exam enough to still keep on tour. So everything's hunky-dory in the end.
Yeah, they get back on the bridge and they do an awkward clap for Picard coming back, and then they're like, "Oh no, maybe that was for Wesley."
Silenced with a look. It was daggers that he stared in each of them.
It's like like the clapping is like you survived.
Right. Don't celebrate that.
Quick 4-hour recovery though, till he's back on his feet. Pretty good for a brand new heart.
Heart surgery.
It's
Heart
the image,
replacement?
baby. Picard is invincible.
He was. What is it? What did they say? Like excellent physical.
Extraordinary physical.
Extraordinary physical condition.
True.
Which, like in future utopia, must be what everybody is. So if everybody's extraordinary, is anyone ordinary besides the dum-dums? I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely
why you need
the
them.
dum-dums.
To the dum-dums.
Next week we'll find out if we have more dum-dums. I don't know. That's a weird segue.
Also,
really good segue.
To bring that around, for people that have been watching Lower Decks, there is an appearance of this species that makes a sort of fun.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So
they should. The Lower Deck should always be cameoing these one-off choices that early Star Trek made. That's a great choice.
So good. They do a whole episode that's like one-offs that they're all
that's
gathered
good.
together. Yeah.
They should do that. It's awesome.
Great.
But next week we're going up the long ladder with the episode Up the Long Ladder. Enterprise discovers 2 threatened colonies which must cooperate to survive.
Did you write that little segue ahead of time?
What?
The
ladder thing? No.
Yeah. Whoa.
It was nice. Just off the top of the dome?
You didn't even check with your writer's room?
Wow.
I just resaid the title twice.
Yeah. Very nice.
Well, let's get into Shuttle Bay 2, the only Shuttle Bay we only ever use, and set course for next week's episode. Engage. Really though, why do they hate Shuttle Bay 1?
Did you notice that the shuttlecraft had a name?
Einstein.
Yeah.
Einstein. I saw that too. Okay, bye, Einsteins.